Okay, perfect. Okay, we're just about ready to get started. Give everyone another minute to get seated and situated.
No pressure, Bob.
Are you lonely over there, Fred?
I'm never lonely. It's a little concerning.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I apologize for starting a couple of minutes late, but we had a wonderful celebration today, the 10th anniversary of the Chuckles joining the table of the ACRD board. I'd like to recognize we're conducting this meeting on the NCD traditional territories through the Hupacheset Shuswap First Nations, and we are grateful for their opportunity to do so. We also have directors calling in from other nations, and we'd like to express our gratitude and our thanks for those nations as well. So, and just a notice to attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the regional district website. So we'll do introductions, and my name is Debbie Haggart. I'm Vice Chair of the Regional District Board and the City Appointed Representative. Chair Jack is not able to join us today, so I will be chairing the meeting. And first we'll go around with people in the room, and then we'll go to the people on Zoom. Let's go this way, Heather.
Good afternoon, Heather Zenner, Manager of Administrative Services. Good afternoon, Cynthia Dick, General Manager of Administrative Services.
Jenny Brunn, General Manager of Community Services.
Hello, my name is Mike Erg. I'm the General Manager of Planning and Development.
Shari Minions, Director and Mayor for the City of Port Alberni. Good afternoon, Mariah Coots, Councillor for Each Tribe Government. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mike Sparrow, Cherry Creek Representative, ACRD Board.
Good afternoon, Susan Roth with Beaver Creek Electoral Area Director. Thank you.
Beta Sega, Area C Director, Long Beach.
Just a moment, we're having some technical difficulties. While they're fixing the technical difficulties, maybe we'll go online. So I'll call out your name if you can introduce yourself and what area you're representing. First, we'll have Director McEwen.
Good afternoon, Marilyn McEwen, Mayor of Ucluelet, coming to you from the traditional territory of the Ucluelet Thought Nation.
Thank you, Director Sika.
Beta Sega, Director of Area C, Long Beach.
Thank you, Director Johnson.
Hi, Kirsten Johnson, Director for Topot Nation, coming from Makoa.
Director Cote.
Good afternoon, Klama Penny Cote, Director for the Sprout Lake area, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee.
Thank you, Director Mastrangelo.
Hello, Lavanna Mastrangelo from Ucluelet Nation.
Director Boyko.
Director Boyko, Beaufort Electoral Area.
Bob Beckett, Area A, Banfield.
Thank you, and we're still working on the tech. Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
Daniel Sayal, CAO for the ACRD. Chair Haggard, it looks like one side of the room isn't working, the other is. We would have to reboot everything to get this one up and running. So perhaps we can be on one side or use the podium. Otherwise, we'd have to take a 5-minute recess to reboot the system, and people would have to log back in. So it might be better to move on over.
The two of you want to move to the other side room and snuggle up with everyone? Okay. We're just having a couple of directors move to the other side of the room. So we'll keep pushing forward as we're getting settled. So next is approval of the agenda. Is there any additions from directors? Seeing none, is there any additions from the corporate officer?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Got a motion to approve the agenda as presented, moved by Director Minion, second by Director Coots. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Is there any conflict of interest today? Seeing none, we have minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting dated February 14th, 2024. Is there any errors or additions? Seeing none, could I get a motion that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on February 14th, 2024 be adopted? Moved by Director Minions, second by Director Boyko. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No petitions, delegations, or presentations today. No correspondence. Then we have requests for decision. And I'm assuming that Terry is going to be starting us off on each one of these separately. Go ahead, Terry, if you want to speak.
Perfect. Thank you. I am under the weather today, so hiding out in the basement so that I don't share with you guys, and going to go through them as best I can here. So the first one is the referred pick. So there was a number of proposed initiative cases that were discussed in late January that were referred to future meetings. So now is the time to circle back to those. The first one is the capital project manager, and this is a fully grant funded position, whether it's a contractor or an employee. I think it's going to be whatever we can find that fits. But basically, we're needing some support to get the many capital projects that we have that are big going this year. So the 4 that we've identified that would be great and are all grant funded at this time are the Banfield West Side Fire Hall replacement, the expansion to Fire Hall number 3, Harold Bishop and Sprout Lake, the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Maintenance Building, and the Banfield Submarine Line replacement. So happy to answer any questions, unless Daniel actually may have something to add to this one.
Did you have something to add, Daniel?
I do not. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from directors? Director Boyko.
My main concern is when we add a contract employee or grant funded, that this will turn into a full-time employee at some point. And adding staff is always difficult financially. And I'd like to hear a bit more about the long-term consequences. Thank you.
Do you have a response to that, Terry or Daniel?
I can jump in, Terry. So with regard to the, you're talking about the project management, Director Boyko? Yeah, so it certainly is, it's always a consideration and a valid concern. We don't want to be creating jobs without an overt plan. I think given the circumstances, tying it to the grants does make sense. Even if this were to be any union work, we have the provision within the collective agreement that allows us to do that. The one big safeguard that is in place is that we cannot add to our full-time complement without an explicit resolution of the board. So if we were to be in that position, there would be a report that comes to the board. There'd be deliberation as to why it would have to be its own business case for adding. So that is something that is outside of my authority for adding permanent employees.
Dr. Roth?
I'm curious to know the term, like how long?
I think we aren't clear as to how long these projects are going to do. Like a lot of them are in the infancy stage. We are just issuing an RFP for the first part of the Banfield Submarine Line project. We're hoping to get that done, I believe, within the next 12, maybe 18 months. I believe that the AVRA maintenance building is the next 12 months. As for the West Side Fire Hall, we have no plan as of yet. All we know is that it needs replacement. So there's been some chat with the fire chief, but we haven't really dove into the details yet as to what that replacement would look like. So I think that's kind of where we're feeling like we need that support in someone who is more educated in this manner of how to kind of proceed with these capital projects in nature. I'm going to say max 18 months, likely a year.
Any other questions or comments? Director Boyko?
Thank you for the clarifications, Terry. My comment would be, my preference would be to tie this to a contract as a fixed term position rather than hire an employee. Thank you. And then tie it to the grant length.
Yeah, and I actually think that we could just make that if we could pass this project management, maybe we call it a contractor at this time, and make the resolution clear that that is to be a contract, not a term employee, then we can proceed down that route using the same sort of format, if that makes sense. And then if something were to happen, such as we advertise it and we can't find anyone, then we could circle back to the board for a further discussion about next steps at that time.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Chair. I'll make a motion that we amend this motion to clarify that this position will be grant funded contractor for, and the length of it will be the length of the grant. Thank you.
Moved by Director Boyko, second by Director Roth. Does that motion work with you, Terry?
It works with me as long as it works with Heather, but basically it would be that the direct staff to include pick number 1, capital project manager, to be included in the first reading of this financial plan as a contractor only, not a term employee, I think was what I heard Director Boyko say.
Yes. Any final questions or comments, Director Sparrow?
Thank you. So if more contracts become available, like more capital projects we do, and we can continue on with this contract, is that what we're trying to say as well too? As long as the funding is there and it's not just grant funded, we can continue on. There's no term limit. Would that be correct?
I think the concept from us at this point really is that we want to give this a try and just see if it gives us some efficiencies. I think maybe if we're going to put it out for an RFP process, we would maybe have a renewal clause to state that we could add additional projects and scope of work upon both sides agreeing or something along those lines. But I think we will have to prove that it's a good fit for us and that it makes sense for us moving forward for us to add additional. But there is going to be a never-ending list of capital projects coming, and this could be a really great way to get these accomplished in a cost-effective manner, and someone who is able to spend the time to provide the oversight that sometimes staff aren't always able to do when it's on the side of our desks.
Thank you. As long as there's a way to continue on if we have to, and to stop continuing on if we feel this is not working out for us with this person.
Did you want to speak, Daniel?
I'll just say, yeah, yes, we will build that in. And again, just acknowledging the fact that where there's discrepancies, we'll report back to the board.
Thank you. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next is the 2024 to 2028 draft financial plan, general government service. So there's a few here. Did you want to speak on them as well, Terry?
Sure, thank you. So I just pulled out the general government service because there was 3 picks that are directly related to the service. So I thought instead of grouping it with the others, we'd speak about it separately. These 3 picks that I reference, we did not include the financial numbers related to these into the draft financial plan. So if you proceed with these picks today, then you will be adding costs into the financial plan. And in the report, I had kind of outlined what the impact of all 3 would be by area. So I'll just talk briefly about the picks themselves, and then we can also ask questions on the general government service as a whole if you would like. But the 3 picks were the cybersecurity assessment. So there is additional information provided regarding transferring our data to the cloud instead. We're basically at this point thinking that it's going to cost about the same. Cynthia would be able to answer more questions if you have about those. The portable IT equipment for remote hybrid meetings, it's really a range of how good a quality we want these meetings to be and what we want them to look like. Like there's a huge range of those little meeting owls that are very fairly inexpensive and can get us one step, but it's maybe not as far as what we were originally planning, but we could kind of pare down what the original idea was for this remote equipment for hybrid. And then the transportation committee scope, we had talked about a number of $70,000. This had got referred out to the transportation advisory committee. They met on February 9th and discussed the plan and are supportive and would like the board to proceed with the $70,000 consultant for the exploration and prioritization of a secondary route. And I think I'll leave it at that and happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions for Terry? Director Boyko.
First question, with regard to the portable IT equipment. With our current operations and the current directors and current staff operations and meetings, how often are we actually going to use this stuff? Are we projecting? Thank you.
Daniel?
It's a tough estimate. I think that if we are doing outreach on the road, it depends what meetings we want to throw into to that category. So for example, if we're just talking about board meetings, then there would likely be 2 or 3. If we're talking about potentially live streaming outreach that's taking place with our OCP, and we want more of the public, say in Beaufort on a specific site to be able to participate while not being on site, then we could be upwards of 30 or 40 meetings in a year. Well, if you're looking at what I'm talking about, there's OCP, various planning initiatives, trails. If we were to throw all our public meetings in, there's actually a high degree of meetings. Planning alone last year had 42. So if we were to throw some of our board meetings in there, there's a high number. So the question is, what will the direction of the board end up being in terms of on the road streaming, and whether that's a preference or not?
Director Beckett.
Thank you. I'm a strong proponent for acquiring this equipment as I see the opportunity to facilitate, just as Daniel has articulated, the need for or the potential, and I'll just focus on Banfield with the various meetings regarding the OCP, wastewater, et cetera, et cetera. I think this could be invaluable to help reach a larger audience, especially given the number of seasonal folks that are living in the community. I would be amenable to delaying this until next year as we start to take a look at exactly where and how it could be used. But I wouldn't want to take this completely off the table. I think that there is value, as all of us around the board have talked about communication and public engagement and processes. It's something that I feel very strongly about and may have considerable value as we move forward.
Thank you, Director Sparrow, then Director Roth.
Well, thank you. I'm on sort of the same boat here as Director Beckett there in the fact that it'd be good for Long Beach and for Banfield, the fact that they do their ACPs and their OCPs out there. They can have people from the community actually attend. Right now, if you don't have internet access and good bandwidth, you're sort of isolated from what you can do. And even in Cherry Creek, representatives out there said they'd like to go back to having their APC meetings out in Cherry Creek, so people that do not have communication techniques like we have here can actually go to these meetings and have their voices heard. So in that case, I would support this. I like to throw another twist in there too, because it's just my character. A while ago, we talked about voting and recording of our votes here. And this equipment will do it. But what I'd like to add also is if we can also put in here, putting 2 cameras in this room, extra cameras. And the 2 extra cameras would be one over there looking at us on this side, one behind me looking on that side. Because right now, all people on Zoom that vote, we can see. But in this boardroom, when we vote, if the chair is talking, then they can't see us personally. One of the reasons I didn't want to take the voting option of a hand recording votes was time allotment, which we were restricted to. So if we were to add 2 small cameras into this equipment here, we can, for sake of time, record all our votes on Zoom and at the same time keep our meeting short. So it'll provide a twist to what we're saying here, which is portable remote meetings, but also we'll all see how we all vote and we'll have more inclusion, which is what we're looking for, is it not? Thank you.
Thank you, Director Roth, then Director Cote.
I completely agree with you if it would work for that. The only thing I was concerned about is equipment, especially this type of equipment, changes so quickly. So I would hate to get it and then not use it. But I really love the idea of using it for recording votes. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. I think that we need this equipment for Bamfield and other remote areas that have Wi-Fi. Recognizing that the equipment was talked about for taking to a community for larger crowds. It says that it's for up to 20 people, so that's not going to be an inclusionary there. We had talked about other options for larger crowds at the regional district. I still feel that it's in our best interest to conduct meetings at the office for multiple reasons, including safety, security. I find that my mind is going in that direction these days. So I support this motion going forward. If we don't get it right away, I think
You froze, Penny. Director Cote? Okay, if she comes back, we'll let her finish speaking. Director Boyko?
Putting ourselves more dependent on technology is not always a good thing, as we can clearly see. However, that being said, if we could record the votes in this room and hold the directors more accountable, openness and transparency, I'm all right. That's what we're all here for. If we're all worried about saving time and 5 minutes per meeting, then it is where it is. I do question the cost because you can buy these things for $1,000, $2,000 bucks, and everybody here has some kind of connected device that they plug. Either connects Bluetooth to your tablet or connects to your laptop. I say get one and then spend $2,000 bucks and done, and see how much we're actually going to use this. We don't really need to get projectors and all the other stuff yet, and we already have spare stuff here that is of use for that could be used for this. There's spare tablets, there's spare laptops, there's spare projectors that could be used that are in this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Sparrow?
Not add it. So this $15,000 is a maximum, not a minimum, correct? So if it ends up being 12, that's even better.
Yeah, that was the maximum.
Yeah, maximums.
Director Beckett?
Thank you. I arrived early today and was hunkered downstairs in the boardroom, and George came by and we were discussing the equipment. And I think, George had in his techie ways, was describing some of the equipment and some of they had actually brought in a couple of units, and I can't remember what the names were. Owls. He brought in 2 different kinds of owls, and he found that they weren't successful in doing what they were doing. Bottom line is that he had said that he was quite confident that he could procure all of the necessary equipment for $10,000 versus the $15,000, but was describing to me in detail about the unit that he had brought in to evaluate that was downstairs, and the microphone picking up the entire room, the camera moving to actually pick up the speaker, and so it was all one unit. At any rate, again, not to go on, I just think that we don't want to get something that won't be suitable. And certainly, again, happy to defer it back to IT to come back with a report on the rationale on what equipment we should purchase, because I just don't think we should spend $2,000 and find that's not going to work in whatever the needs are.
That was my thought, Director Beckett. I would like to hear something from IT and what their recommendation is. If the less expensive ones will work or won't work. So thank you for answering that. Director Cote, you're back. You froze a few minutes ago. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Sorry, yeah, I've got a bad internet connection. I'm not sure if it's the hotel here or if it's you guys. Keep coming and going. Just that I do support, there's other models, devices that I've seen recently from UBCM that seem quite efficient, and I don't know have a cost on them or anything, but I think we should leave at least $10,000 in the budget. I don't know if I've lost again.
No, we can still hear you. We lost you for a few minutes. Oh, you're frozen again.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, there's other devices out there. Frustrating.
Okay, we can
Very
hear.
frustrating.
Do you want to turn
I
off?
support it.
Did you want to go ahead and finish your thought with the camera off, Director Cote?
Just that I support getting this. I just don't know what model and what cost will be, but I think we need to keep it in the budget. Thanks.
Director Roth.
Can we move to talk to the Transportation Committee scope? Can we talk about that right now, or like can we go all over it? Or can we go between all 3?
They're all separate, so we'll talk
okay.
about each one if you like.
Okay, but they're all together in one. So it's okay if I talk about the Transportation Committee?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just curious to know what type of expertise that we would be expecting to hire a consultant for $70,000. I'm just curious.
Danielle.
That's a good question. And on this one, what we're really looking to do is have the ability, there's a number of different skills we're looking for. One is the facilitation skills that that's just the basic facilitation to host meetings, coordinate meetings, and help provide that overall support. The other skill level that we are looking for is actually the ability to assemble a business plan and collect the information that's coming in from a number of different sources. So the discussion that the Transportation Committee had was to walk through all the various steps. So we know that the province has hired a consultant to look at the detailed costing of bringing 3 potential alternative emergency routes to a completed state. So they would do all of that costing, all of the outreach. They would do all of the high-level engineering and bring it down so that the province would be in a position and our committee would be in a position to talk about how it is that and which route and how it is that we could bring that route as a permanent emergency route, so not a highway, an emergency route. We do know that the chamber is working through ICE-T to look at the socioeconomic impacts of the road closure. And so there's going to be information there to gather. We do know that with HDR, we're going to be looking at some of the economic impacts of bringing reactivating rail, but that is also going to consider when we look at the economic impacts of that, we will also be talking about the in periphery, the impacts of no highway versus a highway. So the highway closure impact is going to be in there. So we have a number of different groups that are going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Right now, what we want to make sure we're bringing in is the ability to assemble that information, put it together as a coherent business case. B, assemble a strategy for lobbying the various levels of government that would have a say in this, i.e. federal and provincial. C, the facilitation skills to have that group brought together. And there is a slight likelihood that if we wanted to push a rough estimate of moving from an emergency route to a full built highway, that we would have some capacity there. But I don't think the 70,000 would achieve that last bit.
Go ahead, Director Roth.
Thank you. I also am wondering, in this motion that was put forward by the committee, it says that exploration and prioritization of a secondary transportation route. Is that different than an emergency route? Or are we talking two different things?
Through the chair, that is different. And that's where the province wanted to be clear in terms of the work that they're doing. They are not looking at permanent alternate highway. They are looking at a permanent emergency route. Now, the discussion is going to interlace for sure. It's going to be, certainly in the community, but even at our table, we'll be bouncing from one to the other. But it'll be important to tease those two aspects apart. And we are going to be faced as a region as to what approach we want to take on this, given the information. And so it's, and there will be a lot of information. This is the concern and the opportunity is that there's a lot of information to digest in this, but that information may be slightly incomplete if we're trying to push that discussion to a permanent alternate highway as opposed to a permanent emergency route.
Thank you, Director Beckett, then Director Boyko.
Good questions, Director Roth. I think Daniel just spoke to what I wanted to say is that we need to move on with this aspect of the study because it will either complement the permanent emergency access route or the work that the ministry is doing on establishing the permanent emergency access route will impact the potential discussions around a permanent alternate route for the valley. So I'm anxious that we move forward with this, given the need and how it will complement the work that MOTI is doing.
Thank you, Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. So recently we heard from the Ministry of Transportation about this, and they had said they had spent $10 million recently on the highway in the past decade or two, and they're not willing to spend any more at this point. Now they're putting forward their project manager to go look at the alternatives here, but my concern is spending $70,000 on someone to do something with no set goal in mind. If they achieve nothing, they still get paid. If they achieve something, they still get paid. There's nothing to say you get paid when we have any money. I'm a little bit hesitant on spending money on a lobbying firm to lobby different levels of government when we have representatives from those levels of government that are based in our area and we're not using them for what they're for. Thank you.
Did you want to respond to that?
Well, and I think Chair Jack spoke to this at our last meeting as well with the learnings from UAE. But certainly in my experience as well, Although I completely agree that we have good relationships and good representation, both federally and provincially in terms of our MP and MLA, I think the act of lobbying is bringing our end objective and need in a structured way to the right tables at the right time. And it really is the navigation of the internal workings of levels of government, which is different than what our MLA and MPs can do. They can advocate, but their advocacy only goes so far. Versus being across the right minister, whether it's Minister of Transportation at any level, being at the right discussion with Treasury Board. All of those elements matter, and what a lobbying firm does is it gets our issue in, timed to the right place at the right time, and it also helps coordinate the efforts. So we're a large region at different times, different communities, being the nations or municipalities or even the regional district. We'll have meetings with different ministers. What we don't always know is whether or not that minister is connected to another issue, and so there again, the drafting of the plan and being able to help us navigate that is part of the review.
Go ahead, Director Boyko.
Thank you very much, Chair and CAO. Is there a way that we can have some set directives for this lobbying firm that they will be looking to achieve, as opposed to a broad statement of the secondary access? As in, say, we want a permanent connector and a different way out that we can use whenever we want, and we don't have to wait for someone to go grade it and use it? Or are we just going to say, let's have a secondary permanent access route, whatever that magic wording is going to be? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, excellent point as well. It is in the sequence of things, we are going to be having the discussion around what exactly we are pursuing, because the plan will be different depending on what we're pursuing. So pursuing a permanent, regularly maintained emergency route is a very different plan than having a full-blown alternative highway built, and the potential ramifications and of each are different. So I can use as an example, depending where a highway were to go, but if we had an alternative route that, let's say, went to Cowichan, it would be the whole western edge of the island that would likely be a beneficiary of that, and there would be, as part of our plan, discussions with them to make sure that our business plan is endorsed by them, and we'd be looking to build momentum prior to landing in front of a federal or provincial government. And so really that the portion of building the lobbying strategy will be at the tail end of the work that's done in 2024, because we'll need to know what we're pursuing prior to implementing a strategy for that. The 70,000, it may be that the last portion of that is only spent early 2025, but we don't know the rate at which we'll move. And so similar to the IT, what we're saying is to the board is we believe that it'll land somewhere in the 70,000. We always look for less. If we can stretch that over 2 years, it'd be great. But the reality is that we'd rather be in a position where we have the funds required to get the job done this year, rather than come back for a budget amendment.
Thank you, Director Beckett.
Thank you. I'll look for Daniel to jump in, but I wanted to speak to the intent again, and correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but as a member of the committee and as chair of the committee, I saw the primary focus was to facilitate the meeting so that we could identify an alternate route option. That would be number one. So this is not an emergency egress, permanent emergency egress, but this is a proposed alternate route, permanent alternate route. And perhaps there's some options there, but let's focus on, we come up with identifying that there is a good, viable alternate route. And then a very small portion, as Daniel referred to, the tail end would be used for lobbying. And I know that the board has had discussion around the value and benefit of lobbying. As Daniel mentioned, there was a conversation where we had where John Jack was expressing why it's so important to have lobbying. I think we've got we've got a little bit too focused on the lobbying aspect of it. I saw as the chair of the committee, let's find that alternate route. Once we have agreed that this is the route that we want for the valley, then what would be the steps in going forward to securing the funding and support by cabinet for that? So can I ask Daniel just to jump in on that to see if I'm right?
You are correct. That is the sequence. That is the sequence. The only thing I would add is it is the alternative route and emergency route, because both are on the table for us. And the province is planning on using our committee as their resonance board for having discussions around the emergency route. So, and that's where both are inevitably going to be interlaced in this discussion. But the end product for us is going to be that business case. And if there's concurrence around the business case and which option we're pursuing, then from there we would pursue the lobbying strategy.
And if I could just follow up, thank you very much. And you know, speaking to Director Boyko's you know, thoughts on the lobbying and funding, I wouldn't be interested as chair of the committee to pursue something that wasn't tangible, that we didn't have something that we could bring back to the board and to the region to say, this is what we want. I mean, there's no sense spending any money on lobbying right now if we don't have something to submit to government. So yeah, I agree with you, Director Boyko, that this isn't, in my mind, this isn't about the lobbying. This is about finding you know, an acceptable route that we can then bring forward.
Thank you, Director Roth and Director Sparrow.
I'm wondering if the province would forego looking or creating an emergency route if we're going after a secondary route, because that's kind of greedy to want two different ones, right? Like, it just kind of doesn't make sense there.
Daniel?
I think through the actions of the province, what the province is implicitly saying is they're willing to consider a case for a permanent emergency route. And that's still a benefit to us. And now they're going to consider it with their numbers and their facts and our input, which we're grateful for. But I think if we're really talking about a permanent solution, which is what I heard the board talking about, I think in general, we'd want to know what that difference is between a permanent emergency and a permanent highway. If those align, where we think that in both cases the same route is best, perhaps we have ourselves a phased approach. But again, using the Huey road that was just chip sealed, that chip seal project did not build it to a highway standard. They simply chip sealed an existing route. So you should not be exceeding 60 kilometers per hour on that route. When you build something to a highway standard, you're going to have different angles, different drainage, a different engineering standard. And I think this is where we're well served to really flush out that discussion, because if the two align, there would be, I think, a sound financial argument to building it in phases with the end product being a permanent highway. But if they don't align, the province will certainly be wanting to weigh in as to how much they invest on something that's simply an emergency.
Thank you, Director Sparrow.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, part of the transportation committee, I'm also on, is the fact that the province did say that they're looking for the emergency route and the report by the end of the year, but they're not going to pursue a secondary route. So, and what happened over the last 25 years of we doing this project of trying to get these extra ones in, we get to a point, which we'll meet in this year, we have all these reports, we have no way of pushing them forward. So we need to push this forward to get past what we've always fought before. And the province hasn't said they're willing to continue on based past emergency route. So the mandate of the transition committee is to have an emergency route and a secondary route, and do that through the business case, and then try and get that to progress forward. So that's what we're doing here, is that step. So I don't think we're using any of this lobbying money, or we call it this person until the end of the year, until the reports are finished. So this money, even though we're collecting it now, probably won't be used until the next year, if I'm not correct. Is that sort of the way it's gonna go?
Daniel?
I would say that is accurate, yes, like it'll be towards the end of the year and we don't know the timing, so it could be, that it is not until 2025. That would be nice.
Director Boyko?
Thank you, Chair. With that new information that we're not gonna need this for a while, why don't we postpone this a year until we actually know what we need it for? Because adding another 1.5% onto Beaufort tax increase that's currently at 10 or 11%, I don't think we really want to do that this year. Thank you.
Daniel?
I think the only drawback to that is that the work that is occurring this year that we do need some help with is the construction of that business plan. And even though staff could facilitate the meetings, that's fair enough. There's going to be a lot of information to synthesize into a business case. And what we're saying is we don't right now have the staff capacity, not without pushing off some other project for staff to be able to do that. And it's on my desk right now, and I'd have a number of departments that would lose my guidance and support if I was fully focused on synthesizing the information the province and the chamber are going to assemble here on the socioeconomic impacts.
Thank you. I'll just speak for a moment and I'll call on Director Roth. During the summer, during the wildfires, I was on weekly calls with the Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Minister of Transportation. And Port Alberni is not the only community with one way in and one way out. There's many communities. So if we don't do this right and do it right the first time, other communities are going to get that second access route, not Port Alberni. We can't, it's not all just about us. I know we want it to be, but the province has to treat everyone equally. If you don't come up with a really good business case, it's going to go to somebody else. So let's do it right the first time. Director Roth.
Quite likely the other communities are saying the same thing. But what I'd like to say, I'm actually worried that we'll end up with an emergency route. It's going to take us 6 hours to get to Nanaimo, or a secondary route or a combination. I just had to say that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, Director Mastrangelo, please.
So one of the questions is our current road, and to build on that business case, to prove and show that our, second alternate road is in high demand, is what is this? Did we get an assessment on our current road for some of the spots that were weakened from the wildfire? That's the first question.
Daniel.
We don't have that assessment ourselves, but the Ministry of Transportation did do all the work and did do all the assessments. So depending on what area or what alternative you're looking at, I would start by asking Ministry of Transportation if they have that data.
Yeah, because that could help us understand the sustainability and longevity of our current road. Just kind of thinking about how the Kennedy Hill upgrades went, and those certain areas of the road were really, really, really bad and really dangerous. So that might help to explore our case. And the second is, which I brought up at the first meeting, but I think we're going to have a deeper conversation for an agenda item at the Transportation Committee at the next meeting. But the idea of securing an MOU with all of the partners and groups that are interested in this right now will give a strong commitment from our side and an aligned commitment with those groups to bring forward and start lobbying the government for those specific requests. But yeah, making sure that we have all of our due diligence and everyone on the same page is going to be important. So I think those two things could really help us understand how strong of a direction we have on this item.
Thank you. I think we agree 100%. Yeah. Did you want to take notes on that, what we can do, or bring it to the Transportation Committee on her suggestions?
We would certainly bring that to the Transportation Committee, and I think it's the assembly of an MOU is a great starting place. If there's consensus that's achieved, the time to then build an MOU and have communities working together would be at the point of that consensus. So I think that's an important part of the equation, yes.
Thank you for those comments. Director Minions.
Thank you. I just wanted to offer my full support for the recommendation from staff and the committee for how to move forward on this topic. I think that it positions us well to both support the work that's going on that is a demonstrated interest from the province on an emergency route, and also positions us to be able to advocate properly in an organized and effective way moving forward for a secondary route. When I hear from our community on this, it is the issue of most importance. More important, I think, probably to community members than any other issue we're discussing during this budget. So from my perspective, it should be top of the list for things to add to our budget and to prioritize for funds available. I would like to see us move forward in a coordinated way as much as possible. And I think that you just can't do that working off the side of someone's desk. So I'd be happy to make the motion if it's appropriate at this time.
I thought what I would do is I would go through each item one by one, the 3 suggestions, and then we can have that motion, if that's okay with you, Director Minions. Any other questions or comments on these 3 topics? Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you. We haven't talked about the cybersecurity one yet. $30,000 to investigate putting money into a cloud. Are we assuming that the cloud is the most secure way of doing stuff because it's a cloud, or how are we examining that? It's a little bit vague on how it's worded. Thank you.
Daniel?
I am so on this one, what we were asked to do is take a look at the alternative to what we were proposing. Because what we're looking to do is to spend those funds to get the support we need to beef up our existing system, and to likely have a third party do the 24/7, 365 monitoring. What we found is that moving to the cloud was an option that we had discussed last time, and we wanted to know whether there'd be any cost savings to moving to the cloud. And the answer that our department has provided is that no, like there wouldn't be any significant savings achieved by moving to the cloud. And they feel that the recommended approach is still the better approach for us. Hopefully that answers your question. I think it does, but.
Director Boyko?
So we're doing this for cybersecurity, not cost savings. Do we get the same thing through the cloud versus a third party? Like I'm still not seeing the disconnect there.
So with the third party, what we would be doing is migrating off of existing servers that we have on site to the cloud. So there'd be a whole process of migration there. But the benefit of moving to the cloud is that you get constant monitoring. And what we're saying is that rather than take that larger project on, what we would do is look to add the third party monitoring to our existing system, so that we could have that 365, 24/7 support without having to do a full server migration. We still have life left in our server, and we'd like to bring that to the end of its existing life before we have a larger discussion around a complete migration to the cloud. There's benefits, but the migration to the cloud is a much larger project. And yeah, so what we're saying is let's introduce this one slice. Right now, it's challenging for staff to keep up with the volume. And what we often see is cyber attacks that will start occurring around. There's different times depending on where in the world, but we do see a frequency occurring outside of regular operating hours. And what that does is that we then have staff coming in on overtime or on call that will then address different issues and monitor for a number of time. When we pay that, we either pay it per the collective agreement, which is time and a half or overtime depending, or you take it off in time and lieu. In both instances, it's costing us too much, either in staff being away because they're off, or in just direct costs. So we'd rather transfer that over and have third-party monitoring.
Thank you, Chair. Final question. So this is not a one-time cost. This is an annual kind of started off brand new service and have it go forever.
This is annual. Yes, it'd be going on forever until cybersecurity changes. And there again, I mean, I have to put forever in parentheses. It's such a dynamic world when it comes to cybersecurity. And the reality is that the more we expand our systems, the more complex those systems, the more we're going to see costs associated with those systems. I know that, you know, I was around when the great promise of saving money by going digital because we'd no longer be printing paper and no longer have triplicate carbon copies. But the reality is that we just see new costs introduced when it comes to the digital world.
Thank you, Director Roth.
What does the province of BC use, to monitor cybersecurity? And is there not a shared model, something, like the insurance system?
I do not know what the province uses. I do know that provincially, federally, cybersecurity is becoming a matter of national defense issues. I'll put it that way at a very high level. How it is that it's being addressed, and I don't know. We get snippets of conversations between CSIS and the RCMP. We often see that come up in the Globe and Mail or the National Post, saying, these are the considerations, or this is how the RCMP's budget is being proposed for change in order to address it. But I'm not aware of the systems. The province is typically pretty good at through their P card process and whatnot, where sharing is possible. They're usually pretty good at doing that. I'm not aware of this being something shared. And there again, so many organizations, government organizations, run their own systems that it would be, I think, a large undertaking for the province to look at doing that as a blanket. But I see Terry's unmuted, and so perhaps I missed something.
No, that's fine. Oh, am I working though? Can you hear me?
You're working.
Oh, weird. My red light is no longer red. I don't know what that means. Anyways, so the Municipal Insurance Association does provide cyber security insurance that we do purchase. However, every year we have to fill out a questionnaire that IT spends quite a bit of time actually going through and basically providing an audit of the system in order to prove that we can purchase the insurance. So we are just starting to do this year's survey. It is more intense than last year's survey, and that one was more intense than the year before. So we are able to buy cyber security insurance for a relatively reasonable cost through the Municipal Insurance Association. However, we have to guarantee that that everyone's getting IT trained once a year, but also that our securities are to a level that they are happy to support, because local governments are getting more and more targeted by the hackers of the world. And so they need to make sure that we're doing our end of the deal. So this layer, this cybersecurity recommendation, is another layer to help support that.
Thank you. Director Cote?
Thank you. It's exactly what Ms. Fong said. MIA does provide cybersecurity insurance, but we do reinsurance. So where we buy our insurance to give to you is becoming a problem. A lot of insurance companies are dropping the cyber insurance. So for us to be able to qualify, we have to meet a standard. And I believe that this funding will assist us in that. So thank you. I support this.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on any of these three topics? So I think what we'll do is we'll go make the motion on each one separately, because I know there's some maybe amendments or that we might want to make. So the first one is that the Committee of the Whole recommend the General Government Services proposed budget, including the following proposed picks, be included in the first reading of the 2024 to 2028 Already Clayoquot Regional District Financial Plan. And the first one is cybersecurity in the amount of $30,000. Does anyone want to make that motion? Moved by Director Minions, second by Director Sparrow. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The second one is portable IT equipment for remote hybrid meetings for a maximum of $15,000. Does anyone want to make that motion? Moved by Director Minion, second by Director Boyko. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Oh, your questions? Director Roth?
I'm just wondering if we can add to it that the equipment would be used to record votes in here.
Yes, correct me if I'm going to take some artistic liberties here and just rewording that, if that's okay. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think what I understood Director Sparrow bring forward is to add a couple of screens and a couple of cameras. Director Sparrow did flag that with me earlier, and it is a negligible cost. So it could be added within the existing budget. We'd navigate through that. What you'd have is in this room, you would have a loop that simply shows you. So we're not adding laptops or a lot of complexity. It's simply a loop. So this side of the room can see how they're, it's a shoulder check. And so our IT department, George there has confirmed that it would be negligible and we could do it within the same identified budget.
Director Beckett.
Thank you. I was under the impression that we were going to perhaps park this just until we got some additional information back from IT with respect to the type and cost of equipment. That's what I heard, so I just wanted to be clear about that. I'm okay either way, but
We can do that too, whatever the board wants.
then could this, let me ask through you, Madam Chair, to Terry, could this be put off until the next meeting, next board meeting for clarification, Terry?
Yeah, a couple things. We could put it off for next week. However, staff agenda report deadline is 4:30 today, so I'm not sure it's going to give us the time to provide that additional information. We could bring it back on the 27th when we go to adopt and make amendments at that point. For sure, that would be a good option. The other option would be to pick a budget like 15,000, say, but ask staff not to proceed until a more detailed plan is brought forward as to exactly what is being purchased. If you're okay with the concept, but you just want to confirm what exactly is going to be involved, we could do that. But I think the other option would be to defer, and it probably wouldn't come back until the 27th, which is when we also need to adopt the bylaw at that point. But I think that would be fine as well.
Director Minions?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that in the discussion, I think we heard a lot of support for the concept of this. I think it's important that we do move forward in this budget year. I know there was some mention of possibly putting it off to next budget year as well, because we are having so many community meetings. And I've heard residents in the rural areas who are not able to make it to the meetings but still want to be able to watch them. There's so many changes going on with OCP and bylaws, and I think people really want to have the ability to get engaged even if they can't physically be in the room. So from my perspective, this is a really important initiative for this year. I would love to see us move forward with it as it's written today. If staff or if the board wants additional information before purchase is made, I don't see any issue with that. But from my perspective, if we are comfortable with the budget and we trust staff to choose the adequate equipment, I don't see personally a reason to pause.
Thank you. Any final questions or comments? So we have mover and a seconder, correct? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. And Transportation Committee scope. Did you want to move that, Director Minions? You said earlier that you would move that. Second by Director Beckett. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Oh, Director Boyko?
Thank you, Chair. My apologies. With regard to the fact that most of this money may be spent last year, should we put a limit on it for this year and say, hey, let's give them $20,000 this year and see what actually takes place and then revise it for next year? Thank you.
Daniel?
Anything's possible. It adds a small layer of complexity. If we were going to reduce it, I still think a lot of the work is going to be originally on the business case. So I'd rather not half it, but maybe if you're at 40 or 50,000 instead of 70, we could see how far we stretch that, and that is certainly a viable alternative.
Director Boyko, then Director Roth.
I'd like to make a motion that we put it to $40,000 for this year, see what happens, and then revisit this in 1 year from now. Thank you.
Okay. Director Roth. We already had a motion on the floor. Amendment. So amendment. You're second the amendment. All in favor of the amendment to making it to a maximum of how much? $40,000. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Heather? Amendment. So the amendment is defeated. So on the original motion, which is in the amount of $70,000, all in favor of the original motion? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, Terry, next topic is region-wide services. Go ahead, please.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the other region-wide services, and we are, just let me get to the right spot, but I believe we are starting with 911. So this service did have an increase this year because of our change in assessed values compared to the other areas. We're also hoping to put quite a bit of grant money through this service, as we are hoping to pool the grant money that the municipalities and Treaty First Nations in our region received with regard to the new Next Gen 911 implementation that's going to occur in 2025. Our CAO is working with his counterparts to kind of finalize those agreements so that we could do a GIS mapping project to ensure that our house numbering is compliant in the region with the agreement that we will need to sign as a regional district. So there will be no other costs besides what we can grant fund. We will be doing it with whatever grant funding we can receive. But there is some increases this year based off of the 911 agreement itself. So happy to answer any questions.
Is there questions for Terry? Dr. Beckett is our representative. Did you have any comments on this?
Thank you for asking, Madam Chair. I fully support this motion and would like to make the motion that the Committee of the Whole recommend that E911 telephone system proposed budget as presented be included in the first reading of the 2024-2028 Alberta Paypot Regional District Financial Plan bylaw.
Moved by Director Beckett. Do we have a seconder? Second by Director Minions. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Terry, on regional parks. Go ahead, please.
Great, thank you. So there is some changes of level of service in this proposed budget. So the West Coast multi-use path, that last 1 kilometer, was constructed by the ACRD in 2023. So we are now going to need to maintain that. We are in the final stages, or I believe final stages, of negotiating a maintenance contract with the District of Ucluelet to maintain that trail. So we have some cost increases related to that, as well as the Log Train Trail Management Plan that was done during 2023 now has us looking to expand the regional district portion of that trail to a multimodal format. So there's a transition plan and some increased operating costs associated with that component. And I think I will leave it there and happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Terry. At the presentation to City Council on Monday night, I asked you about the city has some parks within the regional district that we would like to look into the option of putting in the regional park service. Would this be appropriate time to have that conversation, or do you want to have it at another time?
I think at any point it's probably a good time to let the other board members know that you guys are interested in considering the addition of some parks into the regional park service. I do know that there's other areas that would like some components brought in as well. So happy to make for a board resolution today, or I think we're at a cow today, aren't we? Yes, a committee resolution today to bring back some more information about how to add a park or trail into the service. And then I think it's a good opening. I know that we have kind of talked on and off about the governance of this service for a number of years, and it was kind of on hold until we finished that MUP project. And now that we've got that multi-use path constructed, I do feel like it's somewhat timely. So I think that today is a fine day to do that. And we would be bringing that back probably late spring, early summer as a discussion.
Thank you. Director Cote.
Thank you. Should we be budgeting something for looking into regional parks? I know that we've talked about it quite a bit about trails and parks being regional inclusion at some point. But I do believe that there needs to be community consultation as well to go along with this to see what the community could present to the regional district as becoming part of a regional park. So I think it's something that we used to have before and would be beneficial going ahead. Thank you.
Any
Yeah.
comments, Jerry?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just thinking, I know that one of the proposed or the picks that we did was for a parks working group. And that also I think is a really good first step to start looking at what the service is going to look like moving forward. I'm going to look to Jenny, but I'm feeling like we don't really have capacity to take on a full consultation component of it. And I think that really focusing this year on getting that parks working group up and running would be a really good first step, especially if we are wanting to expand or consider expansion of the service into other parks and trails.
Harry, do you need a resolution if we're already starting the Parks Committee? Wouldn't that be the first part of the conversation?
Yeah, do you know what, that's a good point. Like I think getting that parks committee would really be a good first step, because there's going to be a lot of education to that committee when they get going of what our existing parks are. And so maybe at that point we bring forward other initiatives, like some off the top of my head that I know are kind of out there are the volunteers are really wanting phase 3, I believe it is, of the Alberni Inlet Trail to be considered a regional park. I know Director Cote has expressed at the table Great Central Lake being more of a regional style park. And I feel like there's, and then at one point we did talk about the other components of the West Coast multi-use path that are both at the Tofino end and the Ucluelet end, and maybe just putting the whole thing in, which would change what regional parks is substantially, obviously, but there is lots of discussion that could be had. And of course, when you go to discuss that, we'd have to talk about apportionment models and cost and how those are all being divvied up as well. But yeah, the regional parks working group might be a really great first step, and then we can start bringing things forward through that group.
Thank you, Director Boyko.
Thank you. I was wondering if I could get more details on what conversations took place in the city. Is this an example of more cost from the city looking to spread it out to the regional district? What's the background there? What's being discussed here is a huge expansion of the Parks Department and things like that, and that's never come up in this boardroom before. Thank you.
Director Minions.
Thank you. While I think there are many parks and trails that we at the city would love to see be regional parks and trails rather than municipal parks and trails, given that we do all get to utilize them, and certainly that some of them actually connect. All we have discussed at City Council is Paper Mill Dam as it lies in the regional district, and then Stillmass Park and Seton Park. So not, general addition of any of our parks, trails, or anything like that. Very minor changes from my perspective. That's all that's been discussed to date. Thanks. And we were really just looking for an exploration of the topic.
Director Roth.
I feel like we're going outside of what we're supposed to be here about the draft financial plan, and that seems something separate we should do. Talk about it perhaps at another meeting.
It was the financial officer suggested I bring it up at this meeting. Any other questions or comments? Terry?
I was just going to say that this conversation it came up as I presented and Daniel presented to council on Monday night. And so it was my suggestion that as we were discussing regional parks today, that it could be a point of just bringing forward the concept. But yeah, I think the regional parks working group idea is probably our best way forward.
I agree. Thank you. Okay, so we have a suggested motion. Dr. Sparrow?
So what would happen if we didn't put the increase in and kept it as the same as last year? What would we be hindering, stopping, or removing?
Terry?
I think I'm going to pass to Jenny, please, if that's all right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Terry, for speaking to that. And that's a really great question. So Terry has highlighted some of the key changes that we've seen. So we have constructed a new section of multi-use path. As we add assets, and this is the challenge when we're adding assets, especially through grant funding, they have a direct impact on cost. So we can't add things without adding a maintenance budget. So we knew that when we were moving forward with that we were going to have some costs with them up. So the portion of that is an additional cost. The other one is that we have completed the log train trail management plan and we have allocated money to do the transition plan. I don't know what that's going to look like in the long run, but we do have to do some, we assume there's going to be costs associated with that for engagement, but then also with gates and signage if we're transitioning to having off-road vehicles, because we need to be able to have the users work together. The other component that Terry mentioned was the PIC. So we have added money for the working group because, again, that's going to be a cost. Now, if the board would not like to proceed with adding in the working group, we could cut the budget by $6,000, and that would be an ongoing cost. So that would be an option. If you wanted to just do a blanket budget cut and then have us go back and look at how we can operate the service with reduced budget, that would take a lot longer to assess. One of the other reasons that our budget is a significant increase is we actually had a surplus in 2022. So it reduced what we would have seen for taxation. So the base level was decreased below base level. If you look, you can see that there was a significant surplus that was carried over. I hope that answers the question.
Does that answer your question? Any other questions or comments? Did anyone want to make a motion?
I have one more question here. It was brought up about the level of service on the log train trail recently. And one of the ways we're looking at keeping costs low is having the user groups maintain the trail in its current natural form, because that's what the people wanted. How is that reflected in our costs here, Jen? Thank you.
Through the chair, it's a great question. So when we presented the management plan, one of the resolutions was to maintain it at a level 4 service level, except for infrastructure and bridges. Our intention is to work towards that. So we have a lot of work on the table to flesh out the details of the log train trail, because as we get that plan towards multimodal, we have to work with the user groups. We're hoping we can get a lot of that volunteer work, so they'll be doing the grading and maintenance. But in the interim, we still have to maintain bridges and do some like danger tree removal and some basic stuff. So once we're finished the transition plan, the log train trail maintenance is going to become a lot more clear. Like we're doing a big shift in what we used to do and what the future is going to look like. So we've got that, but we also have maintenance of not just the log train trail in here. We've got the Alberni Inlet Trail. We have Mount Arrowsmith, and I can't remember what else. Yeah, and so regional parks is relatively large already. And then, yeah, we might be doing an assessment to see what else it looks like in the future. But I hope that gives a little more answer for you, Director Boyd.
Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Chair. What's our plan moving forward? Is this a one-time 80% increase in this budget? Or we're looking at maintaining this high level of cost moving forward? Thank you.
I think that we will see the cost. We're not going to see the cost decrease. It's not a one-time cost that's going to go down. Do I expect an 88% increase next year? No. Like bringing on that that multi-use path is just that one step up, and we'll be having that as an annual cost moving forward. And then the log train trail, I think there will be some costs that are one time, but I think that there is still going to be a lot of cost moving forward as a lot of that like bridge infrastructure and that ages, and we can use the volunteers for a lot of work, but not potentially all of it.
Final question. On the study that was done on the log train trail, the $50,000 study we all put lots of time and effort into, at the end there was costs for the signs that were like $5,000 to $10,000 per sign. We're not actually going to spend that kind of money on these signs, are we? And that's not actually built in this budget because those numbers are highly inflated.
I think what we're looking at right now is we've tagged about $20,000 in total for all signage, gates, all of the stuff that we expect to do as an initial change when we move to the multimodal. So that's our budget, which is not $5,000 a sign, because trust me, there's a lot of signs going into that. So yeah.
Any other questions, Director Boyko?
I'm good. Let's make this Log Train Trail multimodal and move on with our lives.
Okay, did you want to make that motion that's on the agenda then?
Oh, give me. Yeah, go step by step. I'll make a motion that the committee of the whole recommend the E911 telephone system would,
We've done that one. Next one.
that the committee of the whole recommend the regional parks proposed budget as presented included in the first reading of the 2024-28 Alberta Region District Financial Plan bylaw.
Thank you. Moved by Director Boyko, second by Director Roth. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, third item, Terry.
Yeah, so we are moving on to regional planning. So regional planning was another busy service in 2023 and does not look to be slowing down anytime soon. The main components of this are the work that is done around the agricultural initiatives. A lot of that is grant funding, but we do have a sustainability planner now to support that. And 50% of their wages are actually covered through the climate action money, the LGCAP money that we get from the province. So half of her position is related to ag and the other half is related to climate. We are having continued grant success in both of these areas and looking to continue to leverage that moving forward to help with these initiatives. There was some COVID restart money that ran out in 2022. 2023. So we are seeing some cost increases related to that as well, and happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments on this? Would anyone like to make Director Boyko?
Thank you. On the agricultural side, people are very happy to look for alternative exploration, agricultural water supplies. That's very important, getting grant funding going for that. As well as the other stuff, we're looking at the Somash River, getting that thing restarted, which is not, I don't think, expressly included in here. 35% increase is quite high. I just want to have a bit more details on that. Thank you.
Terry?
Yeah, okay, so sorry, my brain's not firing quite as well as it normally does today. So definitely a decreased surplus this year. There is some increased wage costs as we have moved people around in that planning department to support all of these initiatives. And I would say those are kind of the main two drivers. I could bring you back something probably when I'm more clear-headed next Wednesday if you would like. But I think those are the main points.
Yeah, I can add. I think what Terry has said covers that off. There was certainly the change, the surplus that was brought forward, and also with the change in how we manage the agriculture program, but also want to point out that the grants that are identified in here, and we'll be hopefully reporting out soon on some additional grants around that, and just the staff time that it takes to support that, as well as the applications. Keeping in mind that this service deals with the referrals, the agricultural land commission applications, and some division applications as well, and need to be supported through some of the planning staff to do the day-to-day work as well. So hopefully that covers it off a little bit more.
Does that answer your question, Director Boyko? Any other questions? Would anyone like to make this motion? Moved by Director Minions. Director Boyko?
I'll make a motion that committee of the whole recommend the regional planning proposed budget as presented be included in the first bylaw, the 2024-2028 Alberta Claycroft Regional District Financial Plan bylaw. Adding a corollary comment on the end of this that moving forward, I don't want a 35% increases in budget is not really applicable in a high interest rate environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Director Boyko, second by Director Roth. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next is the 2024 grant and aid applications. And if you remember from that day, we put some aside to get more information. So Heather's going to be speaking to these today.
Thank you, Chair. So several of the applications were sent to the West Coast Committee, and we met on February 28th to discuss those ones. And then several were referred to this committee. So in your package, you will find 5 grant and aid applications. I was asked to summarize the grant applications and look for any overlap between services. So I provided a table for the Port Alberni Community Action Team, ADAPS, Port Alberni Shelter Society, Salvation Army, and Wholesome Meals on Wheels. So I've highlighted what they've applied in the grant and aid for, what they'll be doing with that money. And then on the right-hand side of the table, I've tried to highlight the different services that they provide in the community. So the Port Alberni Community Action Team is really focused on the overdose crisis. ADAPS is really looking at providing youth services. Port Alberni Shelter Society provides shelter, food, healthcare, counseling for those experiencing homelessness and hard-to-house residents. They provide rental housing. They operate the overdose prevention site. They have a safe sobering site. They have a food recovery program. They have a shelter farm. And then they have a therapeutic community. Salvation Army, they provide emergency services, food security, shelter, basic needs, family services, and church services. And then Wholesome Meals on Wheels provides hot meals. So those 5 are presented, and I would be happy to answer questions, but I'd like the board to provide motions for each of those individually.
Director Minions.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion for one of them, and then I'll speak to it. So I'd like to move that the Committee of the Whole recommend that the ACRD and Board of Directors award grant and aid in the amount of $8,112 to ADAPS Youth and Family Services in the 2024 budget, with the following areas participating: all of the Alberni Valley, City of Port Alberni, and regional areas. If there's a seconder, I'll speak to that.
Could be the seconder on that motion, seconded by Director Coots. Go ahead, Director Minions.
Thank you. I think we have a lot of really worthwhile requests here, and I know that we've additionally funded Sage Haven, which overlaps with some of these as well. I would love to be able to approve all of these. I think they all do worthwhile work in our community. However, I think that there's a lot of overlaps in the services that are being provided here, except that ADAPS is specifically working with youth, and they are, in my opinion, for that reason, the one that we should prioritize funding. I also appreciate that they have not come to the regional district every single year for a grant and aid. I think this is their first time. And that tells me that they are doing the best they can to find other sources of funding and not relying on us for operating funding. So I feel really strongly about this one, and they do really important work in our community that I think is preventative, which we need to really be taking advantage of as much as possible and supporting. Thank you.
Director Roth.
I just wanted to note, I mean, all of them do definitely provide valuable work, but part of our policy says that a regional district will not provide grant and aid to subsidize activities that are responsibility of senior levels of government. And I'm not talking about all of them, but most of them are provincially funded, like sometimes 100%. And the responsibility does fall on the provincial government. I don't know, I have a hard time because once you open the local government purse to that, it's just adding another level because they already have a lot of access to grants from the provincial government. Thank you.
Director Minions.
Thank you. I just want to agree. I think it's a challenge that we run into quite often in local government, funding things that are not our responsibility. However, I think we have been kind of going beyond that responsibility and maybe outside of our policy for several years funding Sage Haven and previously ACAUS. I think we funded them the last 5 years in a row for various different projects. So I think that this is in line with that. And I think we probably, in fairness to all, should have included that Sage Haven grant request along with these ones and not approved it first. But I'm certainly supportive of the decision that was made there. And I just would like to see us add the youth services. Thanks.
Director Roth?
I did some research on Beaver Creek as far as Statistics Canada go. And according to the latest statistics for Beaver Creek electoral area, 12.6% of the households earn less than $30,000 a year. This number represents the after-tax income of households, not individuals. In 2021, there were 1,263 households in Beaver Creek. That means 159 families were trying to make ends meet with less than $30,000 per year. It's fair to say that these numbers are similar or worse today. A February 2024 Alberni Valley News report says in 2021, 18.7% of children in rural BC lived in poverty, more than 4% higher than the provincial average. The same report said that the areas with the highest rates included Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District. That means that 1 out of every 5 children in this area is living in poverty. In my mind, these numbers show that many families in Beaver Creek are in a poor financial position. It doesn't make sense to provide grant and aids to nonprofits that serve the poor population because, in effect, we'll be taking food off the table of the working poor to do so. We should leave social issues in the provincial and federal government's hands. Higher levels of government have a much larger purse to draw from to resolve the issues. The local taxpayer's purse is small, and too many of the people that contribute to that purse are people that could use a helping hand themselves. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Director Boyko?
I do agree that putting this on taxpayers in the valley, 5 things here that are social items here is a large cost and burden to bear. Our grant and aid policy also states that we should encourage applicants to move towards financial independence at the end. There's no timeline on that, but maybe we should put a timeline on that and say, hey, you can't come back every year for 5 years, 10 years for grant and aids. Because our policy says we encourage people to work towards financial independence. Thank you.
Director Roth?
I also think that we should put a cap, especially in the nature of these, of $5,000.
I think we were going to look at that when we evaluate the grants and aid policy in total. That was one of the suggestions that was brought forward. But because we haven't used it for the other grants and aid, I don't know why we would want to start doing it for these. Yeah, but any other questions or comments? Okay, we do have a motion on the floor for ADAPs for $8,112. Oh, sorry, Director Sparrow.
So according to the motion that's on the floor, we're moving Banfield and putting in Beaufort, is that right? Because you said the Alberni Valley and the, right here says Banfield.
Thank you. Yes, that is the motion that I made. So Alberni Valley, so Beaver Creek, Beaufield. I'm combining areas. Beaver Creek, Beaufort, City of Port Alberni, Sprout Lake, and Cherry Creek. Thank you.
Director Boyko.
As a half of the director of Beaufield, I would like to move against this because Beaufort would have very little impact on this and benefit, and it's not added in here originally, and adding it in just willy-nilly, I don't think is the best way to move forward. Thank you.
Did you add Beaufort into the motion?
Yes, I did, because this is a service that serves all people of the Alberni Valley, regardless of what area they live in.
Thank you. Director Roth, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I would just like to lower the amount, to keep in line with what we did before, because I believe the grant needs that we agreed to before were all $5,000 or lower mostly. Is that not true? I think there is information here that was included in our package. And yeah.
Terry, do you
Terry, do you
remember?
know?
Do you have that information?
Yeah, I do have it here. So just trying to look. They're kind of a little bit all over the place, but I'll just go through. So Redfish Restoration asked for 15,000. We gave them 3,500. West Coast Aquatic Management asked for 12. 6 was provided. Alberni Valley Food Security Society asked for 14. 5 is allocated. Farmers Institute asked for 5 and was awarded 5. The backpack program was asked for 5 and was awarded 5. Sage Haven asked for 5,400-ish and got 4,300. West Coast Community Resource Society asked for 10 and is being allocated 5, just to give some examples. It is, I think that schedule that I'm speaking of is part of your agenda, I believe.
Yes, Director Roth.
So I'm hoping for an amendment to meet that $5,000.
Is there a seconder to the amendment? Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Boyko, then Director Cote and Director Minions.
Thank you. To the amendment, $8,000 and a little bit more is very low cost to the regional district and to individual home taxation providers. Scarlet Lake is in support of this. I think that we need to support our youth and families going forward in today's day and age with so many crises happening. Those families that have low income rely on this service. So I fully support this at the full amount. I'm voting against lowering the cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Minions.
Thank you, and really want to echo what Director Cote just shared. I think 2 things for me. First of all, Director Roth noted our child poverty numbers, and I think that this is even more important. It's even more of a reason to support an initiative that specifically supports youth in the Alberni Valley. We do have very alarming child poverty numbers. And second, for me, this one is important to fund at a slightly higher amount than others, simply because they haven't come forward before. So we have a lot of organizations in this valley and in the regional district that we've been supporting for many years. And this is one that hasn't made an ask of us before. So I would like to support them with the full amount so that we can make as much impact on the lives of youth in our area as possible. And I did just want to note as well that we had a presentation. I can't remember if it was this term or last, but we had an RCMP officer and the principal of 8th Avenue Learning Center come and talk to us about the issues that are existing and growing in the Alberni Valley with youth. And at that time, every member of the board spoke to needing to find a way to support that work. And I apologize because I think it was the prior board. But the information that was brought forward during that presentation was very alarming to the board and certainly to the whole valley who talked about it afterward. And I think that ADAPS does fantastic work, and this is a way that we can support them. Thanks.
Director Roth.
I'd like to know how we can go against our own policy. Like it says, it's really clear. A regional district will not provide a grant and aid to subsidize activities that are the responsibility of senior levels of government. So how can we do that? Doesn't a policy mean we can't? Or is it just a guideline? Like, I don't get it.
Daniel?
Certainly, there's a lot of interpretation that goes into policies, and I think it's fair to say that there's a number of categories, including search and rescue and whatnot, which technically fall under provincial purview, where we have provided the funding. But on any policy, the board still retains the ability to navigate outside of policy. So the policy is a guideline. We all tend to follow it. It's fair to say that if there are views where we are outside of the policy, it's fair to flag. The board can still agree to navigate outside the policy if it so chooses. And I know that loosens the language, I guess, to guideline, but at law, you can't tender the discretion of the board. And in this case, it would be to the discretion of the board. If they did agree that it was outside of this policy, they could still agree to proceed.
I don't know if anybody follows the Corners report, but the Alberni Valley have the third highest toxic drug overdoses in the province. And that is scary. And we need to grab our youth before they get to that point. Director Coots.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to voice and echo those opinions. I myself, being a younger person, have experienced this personally quite consistently the last handful of years. I surely can't tell you how many children that I had gone to school with that are no longer here. And a big subject matter that we're all dealing with, pardon me, right now on top of the substance abuse issues is simply wanting to have our youth more involved in the tables that we're at. If we don't start helping our youth, in 50 years from now, there will be no board. There'll be no one to be on the board. Thank you.
Director Beckett.
Bear with me. I'd like to point out that we've had some varying opinions on this matter around the board, and they're valid. How much money can we spend? Well, what type of increase is acceptable? Is it our responsibility, or is it provincial responsibility or federal responsibility? Two things that resonate for me looking at is it 5 applications that we're looking at? I believe so, yes. I'm concerned about providing all of the funding that's being requested, because as Director Boyko pointed out, that's an awful lot of money. So how do we choose? Should we as a board decide that we do want to help our youth, which we absolutely need to do? So I don't have that answer. I'm just making that observation that I'm a little overwhelmed on where do we go after this one. I did want to say that, Banfield is a long way away, but we do support a number of initiatives in the Valley, because I recognize we have youth from our communities, and I hate saying communities because I think of Annapolis and Banfield as one community, but we do have residents and youth, especially youth, that are probably taking advantage or in need of these services. So in the future, one of the things that would be helpful, especially with these social type of programs, is having some kind of data that would identify who is accessing, these services. So I guess I really don't have a question other than I don't know where to go from here. I'm happy to support investing in our youth. And, as I drive through every community, as I drive through to get my salmon today from St. Jean's, I see the need and feel a responsibility to help in some fashion. Thank you.
Director Roth.
I just wanted to note that at least one of these 5 receives over $1 million a year from funding from the provincial government. And yeah, it just seems unrealistic. This just seems like we shouldn't be going into the local government purse. That one is the Port Alberni Shelter Society, and they're looking for money to pay for their taxes. Like this is kind of getting crazy.
Yeah, I would rather let you stick to one at a time, if that's okay with you, Director Roth. Director Minions.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that we are talking about ADAPs, and just for anyone who might not be familiar, I wanted to confirm that it's the $1 million a year from the provincial government is not in reference to ADAPs. Thank you.
Dr. Roth.
But it will be substantial. I don't know what ADAPS has, but it could be $1 million, because I know what my organization receives that I work for. So it could very well be.
Okay, we do have Director Boyko.
We do have a motion on the floor I would like to have this a recorded vote because of the fact that we're having a change in the electoral areas based on what one director says. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we do have an amendment on the floor to change the amount to ADAPS to $5,000. So can we have a vote on the amendment, please? And please keep your hands raised so I can call out your name. All in favor of the motion? Director Coots, Director Roth, Director Boyko. In favor of the amendment. Any opposed to the amendment? Director Sparrow, Director Minions, Director Haggard, Director Cote, and Director Johnson. Oh, Director McEwen and Director Mustand. Motion defeated. So we're back to the original motion of to give support ADAPS in the amount of $8,112. All in Director Beckett.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, is Beaufield in or is Banfield out? Sorry, what does that look like?
Heather?
So I have the following areas participating: the city of Port Alberni, Beaufort, Cherry Creek, Sprout Lake, and Beaver.
Director Minions.
Thanks. I just wanted to note that I think when this came forward originally, that's how it was written. And I wonder if it is an error in this, that it's included as Banfield rather than Beaufort, because I had understood that it was a request to the Alberni Valley. But regardless, I made it as a motion for the Alberni Valley because I think that's who it serves. If Banfield wants to participate, I certainly think ADAPS would appreciate that, and the rest of our areas would appreciate that. But for me, I wondered if that was an error, and really at the end of the day, they serve the Alberni Valley. So I see no reason why the whole Alberni Valley shouldn't be participating if some people are.
Does that answer your question, Dr. Beckett?
It does. And again, going back to my earlier observations, I could probably support and have Banfield stay in. I'm just not sure that I'm going to be in a position to offer support anywhere else as we move forward.
You're welcome to opt in if you would like, or.
I'm in.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, final questions or comments, and please keep your hands raised so I can call out the names for Heather. All in favor of the motion? Director Sparrow, Director Coots, Director Beckett, Director Minions, Director Haggard, Director McEwen, and Director Cote, Director Johnson, and Director Mustangio, Director Sega. All opposed? Director Roth and Director Boyko. Thank you. We're going to go in order. Did you have to leave, Director Minions? Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. Okay, the first one on our list is Port Alberni Community Action Team, and they're asking for $10,000. Director Roth.
It says on here that they're not a registered nonprofit organization. So what is it? I don't understand that.
They had looked into registering as a nonprofit, but the organization sitting around the table did not want them to be registered, a registered nonprofit, because they would be fighting against each other for the same dollars. So in order to not lose the organization sitting at the table, they decided not to pursue that at this time. However, they are a nonprofit. They do not operate at a profit, and they operate on very little funding. Dr. Roth?
So who do they report to?
Like, do you mean for their financials?
Like, is it a group of people that just report to each other? Or who do they report to? I don't understand this setup. Like, you can say you're a nonprofit and just say it, but what's backing you up?
I don't think I quite understand the question. Do you mean reporting to financially?
Yeah.
They submit their financials to the provincial government.
Why? if they're not a nonprofit registered organization?
Well, the provincial government started the community action teams. I believe it was in 2016 because of the opioid crisis.
So they report to the provincial government, so then they're funded by the provincial government.
Very little funding comes
But
into
that's,
the action
that's
team.
true, right? Okay, I just needed to understand that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Director Boyko?
Thank you. I think we're all just being a little bit overwhelmed by the number of social programs coming at us, tugging on your heartstrings for various reasons. And you have to set a limit, and you have to figure out how to do that efficiently as a board, or else you're going to be here for the next 10 hours trying to figure this out. But when they start coming at you 5, 10, whatever per meeting, 5 grand, 10 grand, 50 grand, whatever, it's very hard to say, okay, we're going to keep funding things forever, because we're not endless. We do have we have the highest child poverty in British Columbia in this valley. Helping children out through this, sure, we can do that. That helps people out. Raising taxes makes that problem worse. We're taxing the working poor in this valley by doing this all the time. So by funding all these things all the time does not always help people. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Again, because the Port Alberni Community Action Team was started because of the opioid crisis in the province, and the Alberni Valley is the 3rd highest for toxic drug deaths, and that's very alarming. And that's what they try and work on, is trying to lower that in our community. But Director Roth.
I would like to make a motion that the committee of the whole recommend that the ACRD Board of Directors award a grant in the amount of $2,500 in 2024 to the Port Alberni Community Action Team, with the following areas participating: Beaver Creek, Beaufort, City of Port Alberni, Cherry Creek, Sprout Lake, and Banfield.
I'm taking Banfield out because I know they don't serve the community of Banfield. Did anyone want to second that motion? Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Boyko. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next is Port Alberni Shelter Society, and just to echo you, Director Roth, this is one I really struggle with because they do have quite a high budget. And we do have a program within the city to help nonprofits with their taxes. If they would be eligible or not, can't remember what the criteria are, but they should be pursuing that avenue, in my opinion. Director Roth.
I would like to make a motion that the committee of the whole recommend the ACRD Board of Directors deny a grant in aid in 2024 to the Port Alberni Shelter Society.
Is there a second to that motion? Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Boyko. Any final questions or comments? Director Coots?
I'm just wondering if there's a possibility that we could add in a letter of support for this company to utilize those programs that you had discussed, Manager.
Yeah. They really don't need a letter of support. All they have to do is put in an application and submit the financial statement. So it's not a difficult process, but I think maybe what we should do is when the staff reaches out to them, maybe mention that program to them. Will that be amenable to you? Okay, awesome. Okay, any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the Salvation Army. They're asking for $40,000 for replacement of a walk-in refrigerator. Any questions or comments? Director Roth.
Right. $40,000 is just too much. And when you consider that we do have a lot of working poor in our community, and so we really are taking it out of their pockets, or food off of their tables. So I would like to make a motion that the committee of the whole recommend that the board of directors award a grant in aid in the amount of $2,500 in 2024 to the Salvation Army in the Valley, with the following areas participating: the city of Port Alberni and the entire regional district. And that's just to say we're contributing, and you know, they'll probably get a lot more donations like they do from other organizations.
The entire regional district, that would include
Everywhere.
Ucluelet and Tofino, though.
Yeah, it says the city of Port Alberni entire regional district.
I'm not sure if they see the direct benefits from the
So they
Salvation
provide
Army.
disaster relief and all kinds of.
Director Boyko?
You dropped your microphone there.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
I just like being on camera. During our summer adventures with road closures, I know they were fairly busy, and that affected Ucluelet, Tofino, Banfield, Long Beach, blah, 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 blah. $40,000 is way too much. They do have other sources of income rather than hitting the taxpayers directly in this valley, which I'm sure lots of people support them. I support them, dropping off donations, shopping there. There's lots of other ways for them to get money as well. And they are not just a local organization, which is in our policy, that this is a local organization. So by supporting this, we are going against our policy, step one. I think we should explore that a bit more before we decide on the dollar. Thank you. If any.
Any other questions or comments? Director Sparrow.
Thank you. I'm going to echo Director Boyko. This is a big corporation. It's not a small local company. And don't we also use sources through them too? ESS and that is part of a contract with ESS through Salvation Army or not? I think that, no, we don't. Okay. Good morning, because they do a lot of stuff off scene, but I thought we had some sort of agreement with them that they will come when needed. Oh, there you are.
Heather?
They are not our ESS contractor. We have our own ACRD ESS team, but we do have an MOU with Salvation Army for additional support if needed.
I do know when they had people staying at Echo, they did go up there and give them dinner at very, very short notice, and they also gave them breakfast the next day. Do we have a seconder on that motion? No. Okay, so did anyone want to second this motion? If not, it'll die on the floor. Okay, the motion is dead. Director Roth.
I would like to move to deny that the committee of whole recommend the ACRD board of directors deny a grant made in 2024 to the Salvation Army Alberni Valley.
Moved by Director Roth. Is there a seconder? Moved by Director Roth, second by Director Boyko. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried.
I think there was a question before the vote.
Director Mastangelo? Sorry, I did see your hand up.
Apologies, I was just speaking up for my apologies. I thought there was a question.
I can't hear the in the boardroom. I'm sorry.
I agree. I also cannot hear.
And my comment was simply going to be, if we undermine the work of volunteers in our communities, pretty soon we will be stretched to have volunteers.
Oh,
None
you
of
might-
our microphones are working at this.
Nope, you're back.
Oh.
I think we got you back. I'm not sure why. Lavanna, can you hear them as well? Oh, no, now Heather's gone.
I can hear things better now.
Mine is working.
Yeah, Deb's is working, but I don't know. Can someone else try theirs? I'm not sure if anyone else is working.
Can you?
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, okay. We're good.
No, we're not.
Let's carry on.
Okay, I think everyone's back. Thank you for your patience. And we're just about at the end. The next one is Meals on Wheels, and they're asking for $1,000 to upgrade their plastic delivery bins that are currently in use. Do you have any questions or comments? Dr. Ross?
I'd like to make the motion that the committee of the whole recommend the ACRD Board of Directors award a grant made in the amount of $1,000 in 2024 to the Wholesome Meals on Wheels with the following areas participating: Beaver Creek, Cherry Creek, and the city of Port Alberni.
Thank you. Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Sparrow. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Director Ross?
I was just going to make the next motion that's in the proposed motions. That the committee of the whole recommend that the ACRD Board of Directors deny a grant made in 2024 to the Alberni Valley Media Community Contribution Company. I just didn't want to forget it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a seconder? Second by Director Boyko. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Did we get everything covered, Terry? What else is there?
We've got more. So moving on to the Pacific Rim Art Society. So this was deferred, and I reached out to the applicant for further information. They have amended their application to specifically request $2,500 to support the 2024 Art and Culture Walk. And they have also applied to the District of Echulet, but the District of Echulet will be meeting later in March to discuss their grant needs. And the areas are the entire regional district.
What page is it?
Page 43.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Director McEwen, are you familiar with this organization?
Yes, I am very familiar with it. I was even on their board 27 years ago. I'm not sure what the Arts and Culture Walk is. That's a new one for me, for them. They put on 5 different festivals throughout the year, and so the District of Ucluelet is probably going to support them for their application. I don't know for sure, but quite likely. But as you mentioned, they've revised their application because initially their application to the regional district was for the exact same thing that they had applied to Ucluelet for. So that's now been changed.
Thank you, Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. We're not supposed to do double dipping, even if they specifically say one part goes to one thing and one part goes to another thing. How can we actually tell what they do with their funding once it goes into their bank account? I mean, that's a little bit onerous for us to decide and monitor how that actually takes place. My second question is probably to Terry. How long is the Pacific Rim Art Society being funded by grant needs? Are we working towards financial independence, or are we going to keep this going on forever? Thank you.
Terry?
I just see like they were awarded an amount in 2023 of 2,000. There was nothing in 2022. I'm just gonna unhide some columns here. Yeah, the first time that we granted them something was 2023.
Director Sparrow?
Thank you. I think we parked this one originally because we're listening to what Hewlett had to say because they were saying their grant needs were coming up soon. So if they have a grant need to to Hewlett, then why are we here at the same time?
I can answer that. So because the District of Euclid's process is now after ours, we will just provide them a listing of what was awarded, and it'll be up to their council to determine what they want to fund and what they do not want to fund. At the time when we had our initial meeting, they had had a discussion about grant needs in February, but they have deferred their decisions till March now. So we will have to go first in order to complete our budget process.
Go ahead, Director Sparrow.
Thank you. So I think we've got a confirmation from Director McEwen that they are going to go forward with their grant and aid. So if we can't double dip, if we do this, then they can't get their grant and aid from McEwen. Is that correct?
It would be up to the District of Euclid what they decide to do. It will be up to their council. They'll be aware that we are providing funding if you guys choose to do so today. And then council can decide what they want to do on their end.
Director Roth?
Being that the location is included, I'd like to deny this or make a recommendation to deny this application and let Euclid decide. I don't have the wording in front of me that we repeat each time. So I'd like to move that the Committee of the Whole recommend that the ACRD Board of Directors deny a grant need in 2024 to the Pacific Rim Art Society.
Director Sega?
I am comfortable with ACRD supporting the Pacific Rim Art Society. So if other areas, like I do know that people come from all over the island to their concerts and art shows. But if other people are uncomfortable, I'm comfortable going forward with amending the motion to provide $1,500 in funding towards the Arts and Culture Walk.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor, so then.
That would be an amendment.
Okay. We don't have a seconder for the first motion. Are you seconding the motion, Director Boyko?
I will second the first motion to deny the grant.
So now we can take the amendment. Is there a second to the amendment to give them $1,500? Director McEwen, you're seconding that motion? Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the amendment? All opposed to the amendment? Motion defeated. So we'll go back to the original motion. All in favor of the original motion?
Oh man, I'm not sure.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
I'm so confused.
Okay, the next one is Shashak Canoe Family.
Sorry, could I ask that last vote, can you tell me what happened? I cut out again. Thank you.
The motion was carried to deny their request for funding.
May
Dr. Mastangelo?
Just before can I get you to repeat the full motion before we do the amended vote? To state what the motion is.
You mean in the future or for that particular one?
I mean for that particular one, but it's okay. But also for the future. I got a little lost in some of them.
Yeah.
Okay, good suggestion. Thank you. Okay, we have the Shishak Canoe family. They're asking for $10,000. Any comments or questions? Director Sparrow.
Doesn't it say right here that the grant aid application 42 for the T-Shot Canoe family be deferred at this time as the applicant will be gathering further information to determine whether the event in 2024 will proceed?
Cynthia, do you have more information, or Heather?
Yeah. So in the report for today's meeting, it highlights that the Shishak Canoe family amended their grant and aid application to indicate that the paddle to house it was canceled, but they are still continuing with the canoe family to the broken groups and conducting a paddle carving workshop. So they still wanted to go ahead with their grant and aid application.
Thank you, Heather. Any other questions or comments? Director Boyko?
So this is not a registered nonprofit, and coming out of the blue for $10,000 in a very high cost environment, I don't think is very amenable at this time, with the large increases in the city of Port Alberni that's projected in multiple digits, plus many of the electoral areas are also budget double-digit increases. I don't think this is a year to be supporting something like this. Thank you.
Did you want to make that a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny that the committee of the whole recommend that UCRD Board of Directors deny a grant need in 2024 to the Seashot Canoe family. Thank you.
Moved by Director Boyko, second by Director Roth. Any questions or comments? Director Roth?
I do agree, like it doesn't fit within the policy in a lot of ways, so I think that it's something we could think about in the future, but not this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Yeah, sorry, can,
Just reset.
sorry. Can I call the question again, please? All in favor of the motion to deny this request? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is Ucluelet and Area Historical Society. They're asking for $2,500. Director McEwen, do you happen to know if they're applying to the Ucluelet Regional District or Ucluelet? They are? Are they applying to this year as well?
I'm just looking it up. Hold, give me 1 second. No, they aren't on the list.
I think Director McEwen, I think they are. I have it that they are applied to District of Ucluelet for the Cultural Heritage Festival, and then the ACRD grant and aid application is for Ucluelet Harbor guided tours.
They aren't asking for money. They're just asking for meeting space. So it's an in-kind request. There's no money.
Now, for this one, because it is Ucluelet, would it be just Ucluelet?
They have
Supporting it?
identified the entire regional district as those that are benefiting from the grant and aid. So they've checked off all parts.
Director Boyko?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I don't see a lot of benefit to the entire regional district for something like this, so I would be inclined to deny this at this time. That being said, if the Ucluelet wants to do something themselves, I would support that, but that's not really my place to say. Thank you.
Director Roth?
Was that a motion that I can second?
I'll make a motion that the committee of the whole recommend that the ACDRD Board of Directors deny a grant to aid in 2024 to the Hewlett and Area Historical Society for $2,500.
Director Roth? Moved by Director Boyko, second by Director Roth. Director McEwen, is this something that you could want to fund on their own?
They haven't applied to us for that. They only applied to us for in-kind meeting space. But I see Director Siga has her hand up.
I'm going to let Terry speak and then I'll call on Director Siga.
Yeah, just a reminder that we could just change the participants, and if the West Coast communities, I recognize Director Steer is not here today, but if the West Coast communities of Long Beach and Ucluelet and Tofino want to participate, that is definitely an option. It was just the way that the application was written that we brought it back to the full committee and not to the West Coast committee. So that was the same with, sorry, the Pacific Rim Art Society too. I wasn't sure, Director Siga, if that's what you were trying to do at that point, but another option.
Director Siga?
Thank you. Yes, that's what I was trying to do with the other one as well. The support for $1,500 with the last one, and that's what I thought the motion was. And again, I will support Pacific Rim Art Society functions because they do provide good art, culture, and arts for our communities, and people from across the island do come.
Director Sparrow?
Thank you. So Director Sager, do you want to change it from the entire regional district to your area, Tofino and Long Beach, as the people who will be paying for this? If that's the case, then I'll support that.
Director Siga?
Yes, that's what I was trying to do. And what was the amount requested? I can't.
$2,500.
$2,500. And did the previous one for the walk go through or not? I wasn't clear whether what I was trying to do was do the $1,500 from the West Coast communities towards the previous motion.
Can we do this one, then go back to that one if she wants to make
Sure.
a motion?
Yeah, so we do have a motion on the floor that's been moved and seconded. So if Director Siga wants to make an amending motion, we can do that. Or
Yes, I would like to amend this motion to and if it is $2,500, if the West Coast communities can contribute $2,000, that would be great. And that is a motion.
So you're saying 2,000 versus 25 that they asked for? So we have an amendment on the floor. Director Beckett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't know if it's a point of order, but without Tofino being represented, are we able to make a vote without them? Because if that's the case, I will never miss a meeting.
Heather?
Yes, we can.
Jerry.
Terry?
I will make sure Director Steer is aware, and we still have a couple of opportunities to amend if they're not interested, and we can bring it back to that discussion. But I'll make sure he knows of what was done today, because I think there were some of these other ones that he might be involved in. No, just this one. But yeah, I will give him a heads up.
Okay, because we have an amendment on the floor, but if we pass the amendment, we can't go back to the original motion because that was denied. What's the best way to proceed, Heather?
So we can table the deny. Okay. We need a seconder as well.
We need a seconder to the amendment. Second, not to the amendment. So seconded by Director Roth. So can you just repeat everything, Heather? I'm so confused.
Okay, so table table to deny the original motion. Okay, as is. Okay, and to award the Ucluelet and Area Historical Society $2,000 as a grant and aid, with the following areas participating: Ucluelet, Tofino, and Area C.
Thank you. Everyone's clear now? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. And Director Saga, did you want to go back and revisit Pacific Rim Historical Society then?
No, that's fine, thanks.
No, okay. The next one is Tofino Community Food Society. They're asking for $5,000. Heather.
So this one was deferred at the West Coast Committee, and they asked for further information regarding the activities and whether they expanded to the entire West Coast Peninsula or if they were only concentrated in Tofino. And I did hear back from the organization, and they did identify that they've offered workshops, garden tours, and a gardening course in Ucluelet and Tofino. They've had a lot of attendees to their courses from Ucluelet, Tofino, Tyasanas, Esawista, and Makoa. They operate programs through the Wickaninish Community School. They've had seniors programs, including field trips in Tofino, Tyasanas, Esawista, and Ucluelet. They collaborate with other food security agencies in the region, including Eat West Coast, the Clackfoot Biosphere Trust. They participated in the West Coast Agriculture Roundtable. They used to work with, there used to be a Ucluelet local food society that they disbanded and provided their remaining bank balance to the Tofino organization. They've worked with the Waya Garden. So I can say that this organization does work across the peninsula, and I think that answers the question of the West Coast Committee.
Is there any questions from the West Coast directors?
May I?
Dr. Msangelo?
Yeah, so there was a request to get more information. I'm pretty sure this is the one that had a comment on it. Request for more information from Youth Lothak Government and the Waya Community Garden. I do have some information on that I just got and shared with Terry, if that was of interest. I just got the email, so honestly I haven't let me see if I can get it back.
Just one suggestion, we could wait. I could bring this back to the 13th if we want to wait. Director Steer will likely be in attendance, and that would give us a chance to read what you just forwarded to me as well.
Okay, good. Yep. So then we can defer it for the next West Coast Committee meeting.
Yeah, just to the next budget discussions, we'll call it. I'm not sure if we're doing a cow yet or not, so let's call it budget discussions and we'll go from there, if that's okay.
Do we need a motion to postpone this for the next budget discussion, or can we just do it?
Terry, do we need a motion, or we can just bring it forward?
No, it's fine. I'll just bring it forward.
Perfect. Director Sparrow and Director Roth.
So this Tofino Community Food Group, is that contribution areas are Tofino, Ucluelet, and Long Beach, or is it the whole entire region?
West Coast Communities.
West Coast Community? Okay.
Okay, so we're going to defer this into the next budget discussion. Okay, question period. There's no public in the boardroom. Is there any questions online, Heather?
Sorry, can we skipped over my report for information, if we could circle back to that.
I was so excited. I thought we were at the end.
we pretty much are. What I need to know is right now, so next Wednesday, the 13th in the morning, we have Island Health coming to talk to the special board of or hospital district board of directors about their $4.6 million request for those capital projects. We, at this point, still have a committee of the whole tentatively booked to immediately follow that in the morning. And what I'm needing to know is there sections of the financial plan that you guys are still wanting to discuss as it's in its entirety or in chunks? Or are you okay with this now coming to the board next Wednesday for first reading. Obviously, changes can be made on the 13th that day. We have a committee of the whole tentatively scheduled for the 20th if we need follow-up discussion, and then changes again can be made on the 27th before prior to adoption. So I'm feeling like we can cancel the committee of the whole next Wednesday morning and just have any discussion about budget at the board table. But if directors are feeling otherwise, if you could please let me know what sections you're wanting to talk about so that we can get organized for that, that would be most helpful.
Thank you, Director Roth.
Beaver Creek wants to look to reduce our taxes. So if we can meet and perhaps find a way to lower it, I'd like to do that, please.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't necessarily think we need to have a committee of the whole to do that. Maybe we'll just touch base after Director Roth and we'll set up some time to go over some potential items for sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Dr. Beckett?
Thank you, Terry. I'd like to take you up on that opportunity as well. I know that we've been meeting on a fairly regular basis this week, including today. But given the minor changes from today's discussion, I would like to see how that's impacted Banfield and continue to find ways to reduce our double digit. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Just an FYI, so finance staff are trying our best to be ready for the auditors for Monday morning. So we'll be packaging up whatever we can here by Sunday night. So I definitely will hopefully be able to make contact with you guys like Monday or Tuesday next week. And hopefully we can find a time that works for us.
Daniel.
Terry, perhaps if we're not having a board meeting next Wednesday, we can just focus on coordinating 60-minute visits via Zoom or in person in that window. And then that way we can navigate through, and assuming Wednesday works because it was booked anyway, that might be easier than trying to coordinate from scratch.
Yeah, okay. The only advantage of doing it Monday, Tuesday is if we do come up with some changes, then we'll be able to really speak to them in that Wednesday afternoon report. But we'll just go with how early next week's schedule looks like. So thank you.
Anyone else? Director Sparrow?
I'll pick a time. I'll come in. Why not? That's what we can do here.
You're a very popular girl, Terry. Director Boyko.
Moi aussi.
Yeah, okay, so we're good with that, with the direction now? You're okay, Terry? Okay. So now we're finished. Director Sparrow.
She said the cow on the 13th. Am I missing one or not? Four there.
So just to clarify, we do have a cow scheduled for the morning of March 13th, but even without a cow, we have an ACRD Special Hospital District Board of Directors meeting, so that will not be canceled, so that will still occur at 10 a.m. on the 13th. Okay.
Yeah, okay. That explains it.
So all to say, Terry, on that one, we'll navigate in and around, but maybe we do have to try and look at a Tuesday. So we can help out is what I'm saying. So we'll connect and take a look at that.
Sounds good. Nobody wants to see me this week because you'll all end up sick. So let's hope I'm feeling better by Monday.
Yes, please feel better. Okay, we'll try this again. Any questions online?
No questions in Zoom and no emails received.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. So now we have a motion to close the meeting to the public as per the Community Charter Sections 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district or another position appointed by the regional district, and 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. Can I have a second to that motion? Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Coots. All in favor to go in camera? Any opposed? Motion carried.